foresters in Colombia. And and also conversion of harvest areas where there's a natural regeneration of harvest that would, of course, occur. And if you're taking an area that's harvesting is planned and converting that to permanent forest, there's less benefit, but there's also benefit on. So I'm going to talk briefly about, and so I didn't pause because I didn't see questions, and I'm hoping for questions, but talk briefly about a pilot project, just illustrate the concept. When you're doing a project that is a permanent, avoided permanent conversion, the important thing, establish your baseline. And if your baseline from 1950 to 2020, for instance, or 2010, shows deforestation in the region, you can reasonably project that forward, depending on the character of the remaining forest. If it's the same character as what was being deforested in the past, and based on that concept, we have a project in Victoria, which we're working on, Elkington Forest, where this area outlined in white is a forest, is nearly fully forested, and this forest has been, as you can see from the surrounding area, protected by the family that owned, the Elkington family that owned the property. And the surrounding area has been cleared and is turning gradually through stages, as everything around Victoria has in southern Vancouver Island, from being forest to being cleared, probably logged, to being broken down into 10-acre properties, which then become 5-acre and then become developments, and gradually the area is completely cleared. And so the Elkington project is to develop this area, yes, for some urban hamlets, 3 small hamlets, but largely concentrate those hamlets on a small footprint and preserve the entire forest area that's there. It leaves, of course, the surrounding area presents probable future if it didn't go into this kind of a sustainable development concept. Baseline would be clear cutting and it would be permanent conversion to urban development. And so there are some assumptions at the pace at which this would take place. Project line is to conserve 100 hectares completely, to have sustainable forest management on 200 hectares, to have 80 hectares dedicated to hamlets and access and some other infrastructure. And so it leaves you with some potential tons of carbon that can help fund this particular project. It's quite a conservation project, but it's a good project fit for living carbon, and we have a number of projects that are all, at this point, quite different. Living carbon has the advantage, however, of having a lot of similar projects allow us to aggregate the development costs and replicate the projects with smaller projects, and that's the concept of living carbon, to pool these challenges for the conservation community, the conservation trusts, to encourage nations with their land opportunities, communities with their land opportunities, to pool into living carbon. So I'm ending with, I had a visit with Jean and Francis Isaac last summer, and with a photo, when I think about the problem of project opportunity, I always find working with First Nations and other communities, you have to think several generations, and Jean and Francis are still working and living happily in that region, but it's only 42 years, about 100 years. You have to think multiple of generations, and we are keen to work with whoever interested in developing projects and to work together with them. One of the tools we have, we've got a couple of documents, one that I developed with Richard Hebda, another that Bryony Penn has summarized, which are intended to make this, do the same job basically as the Webinexes, which I think are excellent, and I'm glad to see the participation we've had. Still looking for questions, but if there are no questions, I'm a few minutes ahead of wrapping here, and thank you for this opportunity to present.
Great. Thanks, Dirk. I'd like to thank the speakers and the participants for joining us today. We had about 55 participants. We've got one more webinar next week regarding First Nations carbon projects. We're having speakers from the National Aboriginal Forestry Association, Brad Young, Neil Hughes from EcoTrust Canada, and some folks from Nez Perce in the U.S., some tribes that were highlighted in our First Nations carbon case studies. So next week, same time, same place, and I'd like to thank everyone again for joining us today and look forward to having you call in next week again. And all of these questions and information regarding this webinar series will be posted on the carrierstocanada.ca website, as well as some sort of concluding reporting and commentary about the webinar series as a whole. So it's been an interesting experience for all of us in having done this, and I think we've learned quite a bit about the current state of carbon and carbon markets and how they affect the Aboriginal and First Nation communities. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. This does conclude your webinar for today. Once again, thank you for participating. Please hold the